Will you call the roll, Ms. Ostrensky?
Yes. Mr. Arthur?
Present.
Mr. Grove?
Present.
Mr. Kozire?
Present.
Mr. Hanson?
Present.
Dr. Agress? No. Mrs., oh, this is an old one here. Mr. LaFleur?
Present.
LaFleurla, yes, okay.
Did you call Susan Riley? too?
Mrs. Riley, yeah.
And just for the record, JillOgress and Susan Riley could not be with us tonight, but they are aware of the meeting.
So we have 5 of us here, so we definitely have a quorum. That's good. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move our agenda as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next up, we have approval of the tentative agreement with the Council Bluffs Education Association. Dr. Bruckner.
Board members have in the packet information about the negotiated agreement. We received information about 15 minutes ago from the CBEA that their membership had passed the agreement at about a 97% approval rating. Information was in the packet. Janet Reiners is here to answer any questions that anyone might have.
So, if any board member have questions about what the proposal?
And I can make a motion that we, Board of Directors approves agreement with the Council Bluffs Education Association for the 2016-17 and 2017-18 contract years.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Now we can legally discuss it. Any questions, comments from any board member?
So the union has already approved this, that once we approve it, this is the agreement.
Correct.
I guess I'd like to have a little clarification on this longevity thing. We don't have that right now.
I thought we did.
That's right, we don't have a longevity section of our contract right now.
So if a teacher's at step 20, what they get is the multiplier based on whatever the base increase is. That's what a person of longevity would get for a pay raise?
No,
No.
no. We can't confuse a longevity table that we're adding to the contract with the salary schedule. The salary schedule is based on both lane, step and lane. So if I'm at a master's degree, step 1, I automatically move to master's degree step 2 next year. And this is true across all of the lanes. This applies as a separate amount of money, separate from the actual schedule. And it's in recognition of those who have stayed with our district for 20 or more years in a teaching role. So a person who is on the schedule, perhaps they're on the increment step, and they would have to be on the increment step in recognition of 20 years, because they've already gone through all of the steps of the schedule. They will have a salary that's determined by the salary schedule. Then they will get an additional lump sum amount based on the longevity table that we have created. And what we're using is the district generator base, not the combined generator base that includes our teacher salary supplement amount. And we're multiplying that in various increments between 1% and 2%. So for each year that somebody is there for 20 years, they get 1% of that district generator base, which is $330 next year, in recognition of their 20 years in our district. If you, at 21 years, it'll be 1.1%, and it goes all the way down. So the maximum they can get is 2% lump sum addition to their salary, which is $660. I have my numbers correct.
Yeah, I don't have any problem understanding that. I think you misunderstood my question.
Okay.
If we didn't have this longevity proposal for next year, if I'm at the bottom of my salary lane The increase I get would be generated by the new salary schedule.
By the new generator base, correct.
So like if I'm making 60,000 on step 20, and the generator base gives me 6150, I get a $1,500 raise.
Correct, if that's the way the calculation works, yes.
And what you're proposing is now with this additional longevity thing, you'd have another 320 to 650 or whatever it was.
We didn't add any increment steps.
I understand that.
And we didn't change any of the indexes for increment steps on the actual salary schedule. It is a table that is within the salary portion of the contract. And yes, somebody who's in those increment steps with 20 years or more would get that additional lump sum amount. It's a fairly small recognition for the longevity that they've given us.
I understand that part, and I really don't have a problem with that dollar amount. But what I'm saying is, I think we're expanding the salary schedule.
It
And
isn't.
I have problems with that.
It isn't a portion of the schedule. It would be subject to negotiation as a separate item in the contract, no different than the salary schedule is negotiated as a separate item from any other language article. As the generator increases, the district generator, it would affect that schedule, just like it affects the regular salary schedule, but they are not a combined salary schedule, and we don't want them to be.
Okay, now my second question. You've got these 10 steps, as I understand it, on the longevity thing. So if I'm a teacher next year that's had 30 years here, I'm going to get the 2% right off the bat?
Yes.
Okay? You've answered my questions. Thank you.
Anything else?
For anyone who's listening, that is $660 for your 30 hours, 30 years of employment as a teacher in the district.
Because it's tied to the base, not their current salary.
It's
right.
originally, yes, but the amount it can be is $660. It's added on to whatever their normal increase would have been.
Very similar to a stipend, only it is in recognition of years of service.
Whereas the location on the salary schedule is based on years' experience, which need not be with Council Bluffs School District, correct?
That's correct.
So a teacher with 20 years at Lewis Central, then coming over here, would not get longevity, but would be in the same 20th step, like a teacher who
Correct.
started here 20 years ago.
That's correct. But their experience that they bring with them would not be recognized as part of this longevity payment.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, let's proceed to vote. You want to call the roll?
Certainly. Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Kozire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
No. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is another settlement agreement. Is there a motion for that?
I move that the agreement with the Communication Workers of America for the 2016-17 and 2017-18 contract years be approved.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Communication Workers of America. Any discussion for that? Okay, let's proceed to vote. We call the roll, please?
Mr. Kozire?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes, and the motion carries. Next up is our final settlement with the SEIU. Is there a motion?
Move that the agreement with the Service Employees International Union for the 2016-17 and 2017-18 contract years be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Arthur. Any discussion? Okay, let's proceed to vote. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kozire?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes, and the motion carries. Lastly, we have award of bid for managed copy print. Is there a motion for that?
I move that we award bid number 16-010 for managed copy and print services to Midwest Office Automations.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions? I see Mr. Fringer's here. He can maybe answer them if we do.
Yes, I appreciate there being all the numbers.
Yeah, it was well presented there, wasn't it?
Now, if I recall correctly, this contract, we were anticipating savings over what the previous contract had for us?
Yeah.
Kind of unheard of in this day and age, isn't it? It's great. Any other questions, comments?
I'm assuming, are we also doing then, through this, I know there was like funnels for software that helps with color and black and white and all that, but I assume there also is a push to maybe slow down our color charges?
Exactly. The software that's part of this package is called PaperCut. And as the name implies, one of the things that it does is help organizations control both the number and types of copies that are made. So we'll be able to implement rules. We could implement some very, very tight rules. At this time, we allow building principals a lot of leeway in determining what they can copy and in what formats, because it comes from their building budgets.
I think that was where we really had a lot of expense, right? Was the overages were just astronomical.
The other thing about this particular contract is there's no monthly minimum. We obviously have to pay the least cost for the equipment, but if we made 0 copies, we would pay $0. That won't happen, but that is theoretically possible.
Good. Any other comments, questions? Will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes. And I believe that completes our agenda for tonight. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all very much for coming in and helping us do that.
Boy, we could be better.